I never thought stretch marks would break my relationship. But here I am, sitting alone in our apartment, wondering how something so normal could trigger such chaos. My boyfriend and I met 3 years ago at a backyard barbecue. My friend Lisa had been trying to set us up for months, but I was hesitant after a bad breakup. The moment I saw him, though, with his easy smile and genuine interest in everything I said, I felt something shift. We bonded over our love for hiking, and soon we were planning weekend trips to nearby trails. Fast forward to now, and we've built a comfortable life together in our modest 2-bedroom apartment. He works as a software developer while I write from home. Our routine is simple but sweet. He goes for morning runs while I enjoy my coffee by the window, watching the city wake up. We have breakfast together, work in our separate spaces, and reconnect over lunch. Evenings are for cooking together, watching movies, or just talking about our day. Recently, I decided to work on gaining some weight. I've always been underweight, and it affected my energy levels. With my boyfriend's encouragement, I started eating better and working out. In a few months, I gained about 7 pounds, and for the first time, I felt proud looking in the mirror. The weight gain left its marks, though. Bright red and purple stretch marks appeared on my thighs and buttocks. They were normal signs of my body adjusting, and my boyfriend seemed supportive at first, always complimenting my progress and telling me not to feel ashamed. But everything changed one afternoon. We were having lunch, talking about an upcoming mountain trip we'd planned. The conversation was light and happy until he noticed the marks. "What are those marks?" he asked, his voice suddenly tense. I explained they were stretch marks from gaining weight, but his face darkened with doubt. "They don't look like stretch marks," he said. "They look more like scratches." The air in the room grew heavy. I felt my heart sink as I realized what he was implying. "They're stretch marks," I insisted, trying to keep my voice steady. "They come from underneath the skin, not from the outside. You can look it up if you want." But he just stared at me, his eyes filled with tears, something I'd rarely seen in our 3 years together. Before I could reach out to him, he left the apartment without a word. The sound of the door closing echoed through our home, marking the beginning of what would become the most challenging period of our relationship. I spent the next hour sitting on our bed, my mind racing through every moment we'd shared, searching for signs I might have missed. Had there been hints of this jealousy before? I remembered times when his eyes would narrow if I laughed too long at someone else's joke, or how he'd ask who I was texting, even when it was just my sister sharing baby pictures. When he finally came back, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across our living room. I tried to talk to him to understand where this sudden doubt came from. "Do you have any reason not to trust me?" I asked softly. "Do you need more attention or reassurance in our relationship?" He stayed quiet for a long while, not meeting my eyes. "No," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But those marks, they don't make sense." I offered to let him go through my phone, hoping transparency would help. I suggested he talk to his friends about his feelings. But instead of accepting these olive branches, he got angry. "I don't need to talk to anyone," he snapped before storming off to another room. The silence that followed was deafening. I sat there, feeling the distance between us grow with each passing minute. The man I loved, the one who had been my rock for 3 years, suddenly seemed like a stranger. I called my best friend Sarah, needing someone to talk to. "He might be going through something he's not ready to talk about," she said, trying to be rational, "but he can't project his insecurities onto you." Her words made sense, but they didn't ease the ache in my chest. As night fell, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. The thought that our relationship could crumble over something so small, yet reveal something so significant, kept me awake. Just a wall away, the man I loved was probably lying awake too, but he felt miles apart. The next morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read a book, when he came back. My heart raced as I heard his footsteps. He looked tired, his usual bright eyes now dull and distant. I knew we needed to talk. "We need to understand what's happening," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Is there something bothering you that we haven't talked about?" He stared at his hands for a long time before speaking. "I don't know," he whispered. "Those marks, they just don't look right to me. I want to trust you, but I can't make sense of them. But then something changed in him. His face hardened, and suddenly he was shouting, throwing out names of male friends and coworkers, asking about each one. Every name felt like a slap. I stood there, shocked as tears started running down my face. "Stop!" I begged, but he was lost in his rage. He started attacking everything about me, my job, my friends, even my family. "What about your so-called supportive friends? What role do they play in this?" He spat out. My own anger finally burst through. "How dare you?" I cried, my voice breaking. The apartment felt tiny, suffocating, as his accusations bounced off the walls. Then he did something that scared me. He swept his arm across our coffee table, sending books and photos crashing to the floor. I'd never seen him like this. The sweet, understanding man I fell in love with was gone, replaced by someone consumed by jealousy. "Please," I pleaded between sobs, "this isn't you." But he couldn't hear me. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "If you can't trust me, if you can't respect me, then what are we even doing?" I shouted. "You need help, but so do I. We can't go on like this." My words seemed to break through. He stopped, looking around at the mess he'd made, at me crying because of him. The realization of what he'd done appeared to hit him hard. Without another word, he left again, leaving me alone with the chaos. As I picked up the broken pieces of our framed photos, I started thinking about the past year. This wasn't the first time his jealousy had shown up. It started small, comments about my clothes, questions about who I was having coffee with. Each time, he'd apologize tearfully and promise to change. Each time, I believed him because I loved him, but it was getting worse. Tonight wasn't just jealousy, it was pure rage. The shattered glass from our Christmas photo frame felt like a perfect picture of our relationship, broken, sharp, dangerous. I was still cleaning when he came back. His face was pale, his eyes red from crying. For a moment, my heart ached for him, for us. Then I remembered the fear I'd felt watching him lose control. "We need to talk," I said firmly. "I know, I'm so sorry," he choked out. "I don't know what got into me. Seeing those marks, I got scared. I thought I was losing you." The sadness in his voice was real, but so was my fear. "Your jealousy isn't new," I said. "It's been getting worse, and each time it happens, I lose more trust in you. I lose my sense of safety. I love you, but I can't live like this." "I know," he nodded, tears falling. "I need help. I'll see a therapist, do anything. Please don't give up on us." But the fear wouldn't leave me. What if next time his jealousy turned even more destructive? What if he didn't just break things, but broke us beyond repair? "I need to think," I whispered. "I need space to figure out what's best for us. I'm scared, not just of what you might do, but of what you might think of me. I'm even scared of what you might do if we break up." He looked crushed but nodded. "I'll stay at my brother's tonight," he said quietly. "Take all the time you need." After he left, I sat in the dark living room thinking about everything, the love we shared, the good times, and the darkness that had slowly taken over. Ending things scared me, but staying scared me more. The stretch marks on my body, which should have been signs of progress and health, had somehow become the trigger for exposing the cracks in our relationship. That night was one of the longest of my life. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't even cry anymore. I just sat there, looking at our photos on my phone, wondering how someone I trusted so completely could think I would betray them. The next morning, my friend Sarah came over. She gasped when she saw the mess, the broken glass still on the floor, the crooked pictures on the walls, and probably my face, which I hadn't bothered to look at in the mirror. "You can't stay here alone," she said, starting to pick up the broken pieces. "Pack a bag. You're coming to my place." But I shook my head. If I leave now, he might think I'm running away to someone else. That would only make things worse. Sarah sat down next to me, holding my hand. "Listen," she said firmly, "you can't make decisions based on how he might twist them. That's exactly what got you here, walking on eggshells, afraid of how he might react to normal things." She was right. I'd been doing it for months, wearing different clothes because some made him uncomfortable, cutting short conversations with male coworkers, even limiting my time with friends because he would get worried. My phone buzzed. Another message from him. Like the others since last night, it was full of apologies and promises. "I've already called a therapist," he wrote. "I'll do whatever it takes. Please don't give up on us." Part of me wanted to believe him. The part that remembered how he used to be. Kind, funny, supportive. The part that still loved him. But another part, maybe the wiser part, remembered the look in his eyes when he was throwing things, the names he called me, the accusations he made. I need to make a plan, I told Sarah. I can't just walk away, but I can't stay like this either. We spent the day making calls, to a counselor who specialized in relationship issues, to a lawyer friend who could advise me about the apartment lease, and to my parents. I hadn't told them what was happening, afraid they would worry, but now I needed their support. My mom cried when I told her. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" she asked. "You're not alone in this, honey." That evening, I wrote him an email. It felt safer than texting or calling. I told him I would agree to couples counseling, but only if he started individual therapy first. I made it clear that I wouldn't come back to the apartment until I felt safe, and that any future for us would depend on real, visible change, not just promises. His reply came quickly. He agreed to everything, even suggested that he move out temporarily so I could have the apartment. "I understand now," he wrote. "I let my fears poison everything good between us. I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I want to earn that trust back, even if it takes years." It was the first time he seemed to truly understand the damage he'd caused. But as I sat there, reading his words over and over, I realized something important. I couldn't make my decision based on his response, no matter how perfect it seemed. I needed to choose what was right for me. I looked down at my stretch marks, the ones that had somehow triggered all this. They were starting to fade already, turning from angry red to soft purple. Bodies change, I thought, and so do relationships. Sometimes the changes are healthy, signs of growth, and sometimes they're warnings, signs that something isn't right. Sarah stayed with me that night. As we lay in the dark, she asked, "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that love shouldn't feel like walking through a minefield," I replied, "and I'm thinking that maybe the hardest part of love is knowing when to fight for it and when to let it go." I still haven't made my final decision. The counselor we contacted suggested we take 2 weeks apart. No contact, no decisions, just time to think and heal. It's been 3 days, and each one has been both harder and easier than the last. Harder because I miss him, miss us, miss what we were before jealousy took over. Easier because for the first time in months, I can breathe without wondering if my next breath will trigger another storm. Maybe that's the answer I've been looking for. Maybe love shouldn't leave you breathless with fear. Maybe it should be like those morning runs he used to take, challenging sometimes, but ultimately making you stronger, not weaker. As I write this, sitting by the same window where I used to drink my morning coffee and watch him run, I'm starting to understand that whatever I decide, I'll be okay. Because the strongest muscle we have isn't in our legs or arms. It's the one that lets us walk away when walking away is the bravest thing we can do.